Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us on your MTN Statewide News this Tuesday. I'm Janelle Slade. A one-year-old boy abducted from Poplar this morning has authorities asking for your help today. An Amber Alert was issued this morning around 8:30. The Montana Department of Justice says Malachi Talley, a Black and Native American child, was forcefully taken from his home in Poplar. Malachi is about 2 feet tall and 25 pounds with brown eyes and curly dark brown hair. The suspect is 22-year-old Dejera Talley, described as a black male traveling with 3 unknown white males in a small silver or white SUV. They may be heading towards Williston, North Dakota. A huge decision this morning from the U.S. Supreme Court in a Montana case involving public aid for religious schools. In a 5-4 decision, the High Court says that Montana Constitution cannot be used to prevent a state tax credit from helping fund the education of kids attending religious schools. Now, the case involved a 2015 law that created a $150 income tax credit for donations to private scholarship organizations. But the State Department of Revenue said any scholarship funded by the tax credit could not go to children who attend a school affiliated with religion. 3 Kalispell parents, with the help of a national group, challenged that rule in court. The Montana Supreme Court said the tax credit program violated Montana's constitutional ban on public aid to religious organizations and threw out the entire program. But the parents appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court, which said today that Montana's ban violates the U.S. Constitution's Freedom of Religion Clause. One of the parents, Kendra Espinoza, who was the lead plaintiff, told MTN News this morning her family is thrilled by the decision.
We are very, very excited about this decision. We were yipping and hollering this morning about this, so this is very exciting. What this means for us is that we get to continue our enrollment there. This ensures that we have that ability to, with scholarships, when scholarships are available, that means that we have that ability to continue at Stillwater Christian School with that education that they have thrived at and they've done so well with so far.
Now, the families had continued to benefit from the scholarships while the case was on appeal. Well, it's now time to check in on the weather scene today. Good afternoon, Ed McIntosh.
Janelle Slade, we got rain to talk about and a lot of it.
Okay.
Yeah. For some, it's been very welcome. For others, it's starting to cause some problems. This is where Doppler radar has been picking up the heavier amounts. You can see quite a bit through the Dakotas and eastern Montana. It seems to be wrapping around a lot, though, and missing portions of central Montana, although we've got some pretty good rain totals from the last several days. You can see a lot of reports there with between 1 and 3 inches of total rain, but it's also brought some stronger storms over to eastern Montana and around Watford City, North Dakota last night. We actually had a funnel cloud being reported. For this evening, the possibility of more rain is increasing the chances of strong to severe storms into the Dakotas. Take a closer look at that coming up in a few minutes.
All right, thanks so much, Ed. Well, just one day after Montana's single-day record for coronavirus cases, today the state reports 49 more positives. As MTN reported yesterday, Missoula County had the largest number of new cases with 20. Gallatin and Yellowstone counties each reporting 11. Now, the death toll remains at 22, along with 647 people recovered. Another 2,000 tests were conducted. State health leaders are calling these numbers frightening. Well, now for a positive story during this pandemic. A Billings man was released from the hospital yesterday after spending 3 weeks there battling the coronavirus. Family gathered to celebrate Irving Rising's son, who said at times he was so sick he thought he may never see them again. Rising Son's daughter says it was important for the family to stay strong for her dad and support him from afar. Irving thanks the hospital staff and says he has a new perspective on life.
A lot of things that you have to take care of that you take for granted. And they come up and you realize what advantage you have when you're not sick.
Now, Irving's family asks everyone to please follow the recommended safety guidelines so fewer families have to go through a similar situation. In Wyoming, Governor Mark Gordon will extend the state's current COVID-19 restrictions. Right now, 288 people have the virus there. With the extension, there's a 250-person limit for events if social distancing is possible. Up to 50 people are allowed in confined spaces. Churches can continue to operate without restrictions, but social distancing is encouraged. Well, as the virus starts to peak again, the shortage of N95 masks continues. 3M makes the masks and says it's doubled production this year. But demand continues to outweigh supply, and the company cannot keep up with production. This is forcing hospital workers to reuse their masks, even though the virus can live on surfaces up to 72 hours. Well, an Arlee woman accused of beating her uncle to death with a baseball bat over the weekend has been charged with deliberate homicide. Police say 41-year-old Darnell Rivas was trying to assault her own mother when her uncle stepped in and stopped her. Now, Rivas head-butted the victim and was taken to the hospital for lacerations on her forehead. The next day, Rivas returned to her mother's house and found her uncle sitting in his car outside. She then grabbed a metal baseball bat, allegedly broke the windows out of his car, and allegedly beat him to death. Rivas's bail is set at $1 million. A 38-year-old Livingston woman is dead and a 45-year-old Livingston man injured in a crash north of Gardner. It happened just after 9:30 last night on U.S. Highway 89. The vehicle was southbound when it left the road. After a turn, it hit an embankment and rolled several times. Both the man and the woman were not wearing seatbelts and were ejected. It's unclear which one was the driver. The Montana Highway Patrol believes alcohol and speed were factors in the crash. This was Montana's 83rd fatal crash this year. Well, Missoula County's virtual rail summit is now set for September after being delayed because of the pandemic. Missoula County commissioners have been working with their counterparts in other counties to float the idea of bringing passenger rail service across the southern route again. Well, it's been more than 40 years since Amtrak provided regular service between Billings and Missoula. Now, the idea is to form a Big Sky Passenger Rail Authority that would provide a multiple county structure to explore organizing and funding operations. Commissioners are expected to draft a letter to Montana's congressional delegation this week asking for federal support to explore the idea of a Southern Route rail service. Well, we have more news ahead on your noon news. The governor's seat is open this year in Montana and the race is on. Mike Dennison has the very latest. The time now is 12:07, but first, meteorologist Ed McIntosh is in next with our statewide weather forecast.
Now, here's your Storm Tracker weather forecast with meteorologist Ed McIntosh.
Welcome back to the noon news. A contrast in temperatures. We're right now at 49 in Butte. We were down to 34 in the mining city to start the day, but up to 68 right now in Williston, North Dakota, with temperatures in the 50s, 60s. It's been warmer across the eastern plains, but these showers have been moving up throughout the day. I really don't expect temperatures to get any warmer. In fact, they could slip a little bit as we start getting later on into the afternoon. Now, the good news is some of these storms over in eastern Montana, some much needed rain. And in addition, with the early start, it's helped to hold back the potential for stronger storms a bit. And so more of that will start to concentrate off into North Dakota instead. So here's the setup for today. We still have some potential for flooding here through much of north central and west central Montana. And then also really looking at some flooding potential over into the area in North Dakota, as well as very heavy rain has been starting to move in there, plus the potential for strong to severe storms through the central and northern plains here through the evening hours. It was very active last night, and we could be looking at more strong storms that could produce large hail, damaging winds, areas of heavy rain with that potential for flooding as well. So this low continues to sit here, everything rotating around it. So on the warm side of things, that's where we're seeing those stronger storms, but it's also wrapping some of that moisture back around into western Montana and increasing that chance of localized flooding there as the streams and creeks and rivers start to swell up. We're not talking so much about the potential for flash flooding that we'd see off into the Dakotas, but rather just from the amount of rainfall continuing to increase. Now, as this ripple comes off the low and presses across the region tomorrow, we're going to look for a little better chance of some stronger storms through portions of central Montana, northern Wyoming. That's mainly going to be high base storms that could create some stronger winds. But the chance of showers is finally starting to edge away from us as that low actually digs back up towards the north, and then some storms again over into the Dakotas. North Dakota is going to be very busy with severe weather the next few days, but warming temperatures will start to build in towards Thursday and Friday. So great timing for the weekend. Temperatures today, 50s, 60s, some 70s here across eastern Montana and northern Wyoming, where we've already seen the temperatures climb up rather quickly. The chance of showers and thunderstorms starts to wind down during the evening, and it could be another very chilly start for you around Butte down towards Dillon, back into the 30s once again, but generally with some clearing overnight. A few exceptions here as we start looking from Missoula towards the north, but much of the area east of the divide, lighter winds and things start to quiet down. Tomorrow looking for highs to generally kind of level off a little bit, 60s, 70s, and some low 80s possible across the eastern plains. Again, the green shaded area shows where we could see some stronger storms with strong winds tomorrow. 60s for most of the rest of the, at least through Thursday around Kalispell. Start to warm to the 70s after that. Sunshine breaking through in Missoula. Great Falls and Helena also seeing a decrease in the chance of showers here over the next couple of days. Butte Bozeman looking at temperatures starting to edge back up, 50s, 60s, low 70s, and maybe 80s to near 90 around Glendive by Thursday. There's the weather. Back to you.
All right, thanks so much, Ed. Well, the race to fill Governor Steve Bullock's seat is a rematch of sorts. The man Bullock defeated in 2016, Republican Greg Gianforte, is taking on Bullock's lieutenant governor, Democrat Mike Cooney. MTN's Mike Dennison weighs in on the campaign trail.
It's no secret what Congressman Greg Gianforte will emphasize during his second run for the governor's office: his background in business and a business-friendly approach to running the government.
I am running solely to create more good-paying jobs for Montanan. As I talk to small business, we need a top-to-bottom regulatory review because there's too much friction for small business.
Gianforte co-founded a software development firm in Bozeman in the mid-1990s that grew into an international company and made him one of the wealthiest people in Montana when it was sold to Oracle Corporation in 2012. His campaign also was calling Cooney a career politician and government bureaucrat who, as they put it, has never had a real job. Cooney says he doubts that line of attack will resonate with Montana voters.
I think people from New Jersey have a funny way of saying thank you for your public service. Montanans are going to look at that and basically say that's just not true.
Cooney has worked for government much of his life. As Montana's Secretary of State for 12 years, as an aide to former U.S. Senator Max Baucus, and an administrator in the State Department of Labor. The New Jersey reference indicates that Cooney plans a campaign similar to what he and Bullock ran against Gianforte in 2016, reminding voters that Gianforte moved here from New Jersey more than 25 years ago, and telling them Gianforte just wants to slash government services, including health care, and undermine public education. That also includes the suggestion that the Bozeman multimillionaire is going to, quote-unquote, buy the race.
I can't write myself $1 million check or a $2 million check or a $5 million check. I can't do that. Plus, we'll be going out having conversations with Montanans and listening to what they have to say. They're not willing to put this next election up on the auction block and sell it to the highest bidder.
Gianforte has put $1.5 million of his own money into the campaign so far. He declined to say how much more he might spend, but sources tell MTN News he's told them he's prepared to spend a few million more. Gianforte says he'll unveil a business plan for the state in late July, and that he'd like to freeze state spending and, if possible, reduce state income and property taxes. He also wants to take on a tough problem facing Montana: drug addiction and abuse, which he says is the source of much crime and child neglect.
And I think we need to focus more on rehabilitation instead of incarceration. We have treatment courts in many of our counties, and yet some of them don't have them. And they work so much better than a jail cell for non-violent drug addicts.
Cooney has plans to give Montanans access to cheaper prescription drugs by importing them from Canada. But mostly Cooney is saying he'll be a steady hand who bolsters public education and improves access to affordable health care and maintains a solidly balanced state budget.
People in Montana have trusted me to be in public office. They've elected me a number of times to serve, and I've stepped up each and every time. And I think that's prepared me very well to take this state in a very positive direction.
Gianforte says he wants to scrutinize government with an eye toward making it more efficient and responsive to business.
We're going to look to have to prioritize maintaining essential services while also finding inefficiencies and waste so we can balance the budget without raising taxes on Montanans.
Two very different men, two very different approaches to governing. We'll be telling you more about both of them as the summer and fall unfolds. At the Capitol, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
Thanks, Mike. Up next, your latest ag news with Elaine Nordland. Stay with us.
Report from the Montana Ag Network.
Welcome back for today's Farm and Ranch News. In our headlines, we see that the American sheep industry is forecast to see at least a $353 million loss in 2020 due to COVID-19. The Coronavirus Food Assistance Program, or CFAP, provides funds for livestock and commodities that have experienced at least a 5% loss due to the pandemic. Sheep under 2 years of age qualified for the program right out of the gate, but cull and slaughter ewes did not. The American Sheep Industry Association said data proves the two classes of ewes do qualify for the funding.
At the time when they were drafting that, we didn't have the market data that we needed to show the 5% loss in cull ewes and replacement ewes. That's why that cutoff came in where it did on lambs under 2 years of age. Since then, of course, that market data for April has rolled in. So we were able to submit comments to USDA urging them to include those two classes of ewes. We're seeing right now about an 18% loss in cull ewes and about a 26% loss in the value of replacement ewes. So it is a significant hit.
ASI and state affiliates like the Montana Wool Growers Association sent a letter last week to congressional leaders calling for additional support to help wool and lamb producers make it through the pandemic.
The USDA only had $16 billion they were able to cobble together between the CARES Act and some of the Commodity Credit Corporation funds that they had available. So moving forward, it's absolutely critical that we keep working with Congress. We've had a lot of discussions here the last couple of weeks with the Senate. I'm optimistic they may be looking to move on something after the July 4th recess because USDA needs more resources, and that's our unified message to the Senate. The USDA needs the resources to be able to respond to producers' needs because this coronavirus, the effects of the coronavirus are going to continue plaguing agriculture well as they have well into this quarter and for the foreseeable future, unfortunately.
While the CFAP funding is helping producers make it through the pandemic, not all aspects of the sheep industry are pulling through. The producer-owned Mountain States Rosen Lamb Processing Company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection this spring, citing lost sales due to the pandemic, according to court documents. We'll be right back. Returning back to the report now, while haying has slowed just a bit this week due to rain statewide, the first cutting of alfalfa is reported at 32% complete, while USDA's other hay categories first cutting report also comes in at 32% wrapped up. Montana's winter wheat rating has improved this week with 87% of the crop rated good to excellent and spring wheat rated 81% good to excellent. Also, friends, don't forget that Farm Service Agency still continues to take applications for the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program. Applications must be submitted by August 28, 2020. For more, contact your local USDA Service Center today. That's our Farm and Ranch News.
All right, thanks, Elaine. Ed McIntosh here for one more look at that weather out there.
Yeah, we still have a lot of rain, especially western Montana, where you've already been really soaked. You're going to see more with isolated thunderstorms. And while things could dry out a little bit in the eastern plains, isolated showers and thunderstorms still possible there. Overall, we're looking at keeping the temperatures a little on the cool side for the next couple of days. A little bump in the readings with drier weather starting to move in by Thursday, and that's going to continue into Friday as well. For areas around Butte-Bozeman, you're off to another chilly start first thing tomorrow morning. Butte, you're back into the 30s once again, but 70s by the afternoon, Thursday, Friday. Saturday, Independence Day, looks generally warm and dry across the region. There will be a few isolated showers and thunderstorms by the end of the weekend and into early next week.
All right, thanks, Ed. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow.